Good morning. Welcome to another edition of Francis Bacon and Eggs. Today I'll be reading the essay of Simulation and Dissimulation, published in 1625. I'll also be making some eggs. Let's get started. Dissimulation is but a faint kind of policy or wisdom, for it asketh a strong wit and a strong heart to know when to tell truth and to do it. Therefore it is the weaker sort of politics that are the great dissemblers. What kind of egg shall I make today? Sunny side up? Scrambled? You know, I don't think I made over easy eggs on this show yet. Let's try that. Pan. After all of my demonstrations yesterday, it looks like I actually forgot to oil this. So, that's annoying. Put it up to medium heat. And since I didn't put any olive oil in, I get to choose what oil I want. So we're going to use coconut oil today. Bit of an extra flair. Should be nice. So, I love coconut oil. It's really soft oil. Melts very quickly. And it's delicious just by itself. That's so good. Very exciting. Let that heat up. Read a bit more. Tacitus saith, Livia sorted well with the arts of her husband, in dissimulation of her son. Attributing arts or policy to Augustus, in dissimulation to Tiberius. And again, when Mucianus encourageth Vespasian to take arms against Vitellius, apologize, I have something in my throat. Maybe it was the coconut oil. We rise not against the piercing judgment of Augustus, nor the extreme caution or closeness of Tiberius. I honestly have no idea what this means. These properties of arts or policy, in dissimulation or closeness, are indeed habits and faculties several, and to be distinguished. For if a man have that penetration of judgment as he can discern what things are to be laid open, and what to be secreted, and what to be showed at half lights, and to whom and when, which indeed are arts of state and arts of life, as Tacitus well calleth them, to him a habit of dissimulation is a hindrance and a poorness. But if a man cannot attain to that judgment, then it is left to him generally to be close, and a dissembler. Where a man cannot choose or vary in particulars, there it is good to take the safest and wariest way in general, like the going softly by one that cannot well see. Certainly, the ablest man that ever were have had all an openness and frankness of dealing, and a name of certainty and veracity. But then they were like horses well managed, for they could tell passing well when to stop or turn. And at such times when they thought the case indeed required dissimulation, if then they used it, it came to pass that the former opinion spread abroad, of their good faith and clearness of dealing, made them almost invincible. I think one of the hard things about this essay is I frankly don't really know what dissimulation is supposed to mean. I suppose I could look it up on my computer. That might be useful for everyone involved. I don't want you to waste your time watching me make these beautiful eggs, not understanding a word I'm saying. And indeed, I don't want to waste my time that way either. For such is not a noble thing, as Francis Bacon might say. Funny thing about eggs, I broke that one, so I never learned how to open them with two hands very well. I used to work at a kitchen every morning cracking 50 to 100 eggs, and you learn pretty quick how to open eggs two hands at once. The trick is all in the thumb. It's a rolling motion. Just gonna let those sit there. Should have waited a bit more maybe. Let's look up what dissimulation means. I have my computer here, quite convenient. Define dissimulation. The concealment of one's thoughts, feelings, or character. The pretense. It's also a 2002 death metal album. So, that's badass. I'm gonna listen to that as soon as this is over. There be 3 degrees of this hiding and veiling of a man's self. Ah, good, now this makes a bit more sense. The first, closeness, reservation, and secrecy, when a man leaveth himself without observation, or without hold to be taken, what he is. The second, dissimulation in the negative, when a man lets fall signs and arguments, that he is not that he is. And the third, simulation in the affirmative, when a man industriously and expressly feigns and pretends to be that he is not. I wonder if he's talking about me and this jacket, which I never wear except in the making of this video. Interesting. For the first of these, secrecy, it is indeed the virtue of a confessor, and assuredly the secret man heareth many confessions, for who will open himself to a blab or babbler? But if a man be thought secret, it inviteth discovery, as the more close air sucketh in the more open. And as in confession, the revealing is not for worldly use, but for the ease of a man's heart. So secret men come to the knowledge of many things in that kind, while men rather discharge their minds than impart their minds. In few words, mysteries are due to secrecy. Besides, to say truth, nakedness is uncomely, as well as mind as body. Man clearly never had sex. And it addeth no small reverence to men's manners and actions, if they be not altogether open. As for talkers and futile persons, a la me, they are commonly vain and credulous withal, it's true. For he that talketh what he knoweth will also talk what he knoweth not. Therefore set it down that the habit of secrecy is both politic and moral. And in this part, it is good that a man's face give his tongue leave to speak, for the discovery of a man's self, by the tracts of his countenance, is a great weakness in betraying, by how much it is many times more marked and believed than a man's words. I think he's telling me to shut up, but I can't tell. This pan was a bit not hot enough initially, so they spread out too much. And then now it's too hot. I'm not going to be winning today. Now I know that 6 is just too hot with this burner. Now it looks like there. One of my yolks is broken. The other ones look pretty good. The trick with sunny side up is you can just leave it like this. This is perfectly fine, but we're going to do over easy today. I'm actually going to add salt and pepper before I flip them, so that they sink just a tiny bit more into the whites. If you flip them first, salt and pepper can tend to roll off a bit more. It's not what I want. If I add some chives, no, we'll have some basil on them. Fresh basil today, I wish. Old and chopped, but still good. Now I lift my sword. Quick motions, get the whole thing. Quickly. That one's just beautiful. And 3. Alright. Just gonna let that sit for around 20 seconds, which should be enough for the last paragraph. For the second, which is dissimulation, it followeth many times upon secrecy by a necessity, so that he will be secret must be a dissembler in some degree. For men are too cunning to suffer a man to keep an indifferent carriage between both, and to be secret without swaying the balance on either side. They will so beset a man with questions and draw him on and pick it out of him, that without an absurd silence he must show an inclination one way, or if he do not, they will gather as much by his silence as by his speech. It's actually a couple pages more. If you listen, you can actually hear screeching, like leeches in a fire. I don't know if you've ever had that experience, but they're actually quite tasty. Take a leech, put it in the fire, it kind of hisses for a while, but they're chewy a bit like gum. I don't know where you can buy leeches, so I'm not going to have that on this show, but if you want at some point. So this looks really good, but I can tell already it's not going to be enough for me. So seeing as how there's another page and a half, I'm going to give you some real bacon with the Francis bacon. Here we have some bacon. There's a few strips left. Just gonna try and split apart the strands. Always takes a bit of effort. So I'm going to turn it down. Coconut oil has a lower flash temperature than olive oil or butter, so it tends to steam a bit quicker. And of course I could have used the bacon first, but we don't always want bacon grease. And the other thing about bacon is that bacon grease doesn't seem to flow on the pan as evenly as coconut or butter does. It tends to sputter a bit more, which leads to an uneven egg, so you won't get this really nice brown texture, but you get sort of crispier on the edges more likely. I found it more difficult to make good sunset up or over easy eggs in bacon grease. So there's a tip for you if you want really good ones to impress the in-laws or whoever you're making eggs for. English teachers, one-night stands, the dog. I'll put these away. Do I have anything? No. I'm running out of food. I'm just going to have bacon and eggs today, nothing else. Very strange. I guess I could have an onion, but I'm alright. As for equivocations or oraculous speeches, they cannot hold out long, so that no man can be secret except to give himself a little scope of dissimulation, which is, as it were, but the skirts or train of secrecy. What for the third degree, which is simulation in false profession, that I hold more culpable and less politic, except it being great and rare matters. And therefore a general custom of simulation, which is this last degree, is a vice rising either of a natural falseness or pilferness, or of a man that hath some main fault, which because a man must need disguise, it maketh him practice simulation in other things, lest his hand should be out of U-R-E. I don't know what that word even means. Practice, which word now obsolete except in the verb inure, has no etymological connections with the word use. Comes from the French "faire." That's quite nice. The advantages of simulation and dissimulation are three. First, to lay asleep opposition, and to surprise, for when a man's intentions are published, it is an alarm to call off all that are against him. The second is to reserve to a man's self a fair retreat. For if a man engage himself by a manifest declaration, he must go through or take a fall. The third is the better to discover the mind of another. For to him that opens himself, men will hardly show themselves adverse, but will fair let him go on, and turn their freedom of speech to freedom of thought. And therefore it is a good shrewd proverb of the Spaniard, tell a lie and find the truth. As if there were no way of discovery but by simulation. There be also three disadvantages to set it even. The first, that simulation and dissimulation commonly carry with them a show of fearfulness, which in any business does spoil the feathers of brown flying up to the mark. The second, that it puzzleth or perplexeth the conceits of many, that perhaps would otherwise cooperate with him, and makes a man walk almost alone to his own ends. And the third and greatest is, that it depriveth a man of one of the most principal instruments for action, which is trust and belief. The best composition and temperature is to have openness in fame and opinion, secrecy in habit, dissimulation in seasonable use, and a power to feign if there be no remedy. Ah, yes. of quotes, lots and lots of notes. The analysis. Generally, you want to flip your bacon. I like mine rather chewy. I grew up being taught that bacon was always cooked in a microwave under a paper towel for like 30 seconds on either side, and it was so chewy it was basically ham. In retrospect, that's not normal. So I'm going to put this a bit more because I want them to be a bit crispy. I wish I had a cover. I'm going to have to clean this dough afterwards. It's bouncing everywhere. Analysis of Essay 6. 1. Dissimulation is a mark of weakness. 2. Secrecy. Exacts confession. Is comely and decent, like clothing. Checks vanity and prevents betrayal. 3. Dissimulation is often a necessary consequence of secrecy. 4. Simulation is more culpable when habitual is a real vice. 5. Advantages of simulation and dissimulation. They lay asleep opposition. They secure a man's safe retreat. They help one to find out the mind of another. And 6. Their disadvantage. They prevent promptness in any business, deprive a man of cooperation, and make trust and belief impossible. And that is Francis Bacon for today. Just interesting, an interesting essay. I didn't take much away from that essay in particular, except that I really should have less manifests and declarations, because then I have to follow through. And if you don't make a promise, then you don't have to follow through with it. Super simple. Epictetus says the same thing, as I'm reading recently. But it was a good essay, I guess. Looking forward to the next one, of parents and children. And I have these eggs here and bacon, which just looks really rather delightful. And as I digest them, I will think of you, oh reader, or viewer, or listener, or whatever you may be. Take care. I apologize once again for the echo effect of my voice, but have a good day, and I hope you've learned something.